I'm starting the recording now. Okay. So again, just to reiterate, we will be discussing mainly about Java basics, and the different concepts that would be required, not only for the lab purposes, but also to easily understand like the theory topics and concepts that professor will be talking about in class. As you go further in the theory class as well, you'll be learning about concepts which need to be implemented in our lab section. We will be discussing that during our Thursday lab sessions. So for that, the basic understanding of Java as a language would be preferred, would be required. That's the reason we are holding this Sunday session. So the main resource that I will be following through for this session would be Tutorials Point. So Tutorials Points has is a website wherein you can go and learn different topics of different types of domains. So what I will be doing is going through the Java tutorial from Tutorials Point. There are multiple other resources like this, like W3 schools and everything, which I know some people might prefer. But the reason I'm choosing Tutorials Point is because the flow of the topics that we will be covering is very similar to what we would be required like for our labs, especially about the topics that we'll be discussing today will be very useful and beneficial for the students in the upcoming lab for week 2, which is going to be on like next Thursday. It's mainly going to be on Java basics and also data structures and stuff. So coming to this whole question of Java, why are we choosing Java? What is this? Why is everybody talking so much about Java in this course? Because computer science is a very big domain. It's a very guys, am I audible? Is everything okay? If you can see my screen and are you able to hear me and everything's
Yes,
clear?
yes.
Can I go ahead? Okay, so coming to like answering the question as to why Java, what is this? Why is everybody talking about Java? So as I mentioned in the previous lab, the like this entire course is designed to enhance your understanding and your skills towards object oriented programming. This by object oriented programming, I basically mean that there is a concept that and there's a certain idea that exists, and you are trying to model your solution by creating concepts like these, with which these concepts can be later converted to a physical entity called an object, and these objects are the things that you will be manipulating around to create your desired solution. So Java is one of the like most strongest languages, I believe, which has a direct relationship with the object-oriented concepts, because there is no other language that would come to your mind if you talk about object-oriented programming. There are different options like Python, not C, but C++. However, Java is built and designed in such a way that the main core focus of this language is object-oriented programming. Another important thing is that Java is a high level language. So what do you mean by a high level language is that there are certain languages which are very close to the hardware, to the system. And for languages like this, you need to write a lot of code. You need to write and deal with a lot of bare minimum requirements and things, which is not ideal for day-to-day scenarios, especially for new users coming in, because it deals with problems that you do not like come on a day-to-day basis, especially things related to memory, things related to storage. These are things that are required, but you don't have you but to even solve the smallest of problems, you will need a lot of boilerplate code to get yourself up and running. By boilerplate, what I mean is, even to start with like forming the solution of any particular problem, you will have to write an entire structure which will allow you to solve that problem. So Java again is a high level language with which you can eliminate this entire process, because all of it is done internally by the language itself. So again, just to reiterate, it's a high level language, and it is a class based object oriented programming language. Any questions guys till now? Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now coming to a compiler. Guys, before I go ahead, I just have a quick question. Anyone that has computer science background, or anyone like who has any knowledge of any programming languages with like but of a different language. It doesn't necessarily have to be Java. Just any like basic understanding of programming. You can just like quickly show a raise of hands or something. Yeah, Karan, I hope you can hear my voice now. I hope everyone can hear it. So yeah, great. I see a few hands are raised. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, a lot of people might have these problem solving tools and skills that is necessary for this lab, but it will be difficult for you to convert it to this language. So at the end of the day, what I want you guys to understand is Java is just a language, it is just a medium. The same way we use English for communication, at the end of the day, the concept that you think about it in your head is going to be the same. Just the way you put it forward and just the way you represent it is what is important, and that is what English does for you. The same way, the concepts that you will be learning in the theory classes are very conceptual. That's why everything is dealt with in a language independent format, which is what diagrams are. So to deal with these language, to convert these language independent formats into actual code, we would need a medium. Java is that medium. Java is that programming language which will help us convert those concepts uh, to code. Now, coming to the Java compiler. Java compiler basically is nothing but, again, just to reiterate, it also mentions on this website why we should learn Java. It is open source, sure. It is simple and easy to learn. I've already told you about it. It is platform independent. By platform independent, what they mean is if you write it once, it can be run anywhere. Now, the reason for that is the Java compiler. I'm just going to go ahead and see if there's a section for Java compiler. Yeah, it gives you, you can give, I'll give you this link, guys. I'm gonna put it on the chat in case I'm scrolling too fast. You guys can go ahead and take a look at it yourself. I'm just gonna give you an overview. But basically it gives you all the details of the prerequisites. There is not much prerequisites required. Most of it is going to be what you're learning in the theory class, all concepts basically. You need not have any understanding of any how Java works to do this session, to do the Sunday session. It also gives you why you should learn Java, what are the benefits, what is the like the opportunities and stuff, but that's not something that I'll be covering in right now. So yes, coming to the overview, I believe, yeah, again, Java, as I mentioned, is object oriented. It's platform independent. It's really simple for you to write and read, which is very important, especially coming into programming as a beginner and not knowing what code is. Sometimes it might be really intimidating to see the screen and just see a lot of code and not understanding what is going on. People might take weeks or even months to understand the entire like structure of what the code is, what it's doing, and how it's functioning. And again, it's multi-threaded, so these are topics that sir will be covering in the theory class. You don't have to worry about it right now. Interpreted, dynamic, high performance, all of that is self-explanatory. So coming to, okay, so before we delve like in ourselves into Java programming directly, I want you guys to understand compilers. A compiler is nothing but a tool that internally converts your written code in text format to instructions that the machine would understand. So the reason a Java is called a high-level programming language is because the Java compiler is really strong. This is what we installed last Thursday. The JDK is the tool that we installed last Thursday as part of our setup lab. So JDK is nothing
And
but, sorry, can you repeat? Was there any questions? Okay, I'll just go ahead. So Java, the JDK that we installed on the Thursday lab was the JDK stands for the Java Development Kit. What it consists of is the main core Java compiler and all other tools and other software that it depends on, like built together, kept together, and packaged in such a way that you as a developer can start programming with Java. That is what the JDK is. Now, the JDK is very independent on what you write the code in. It doesn't really matter. You can write your code in Notepad, you can write it in any random text editor. It doesn't really matter. What we installed on Thursday was either NetBeans or Eclipse. Now, NetBeans and Eclipse are IDEs. What I mean by IDEs, the IDEs are, I'm just going to Google it and show it to you. An IDE is nothing but an integrated development environment. So these are basically, this is basically like a software which is nothing but a glorified text editor. That's the best way to describe an IDE. What it does is it allows you to manipulate files, open those files, and write code inside these files. The best example of these are, as mentioned here, there's Visual Studio. It's by Microsoft. It's really famous. Eclipse is by the Eclipse Foundation, which is mainly Java based, but it also extends to other programming languages. Same thing with NetBeans. It is again an open source. I think it's by Apache, if I'm not wrong. Apache NetBeans, I believe that's what the name is. I'm not too sure. Yeah, Apache is one of the founders. So it is again built by Apache and Oracle and everything built together for to support a language like Java and to support all the features. The IDE allows you to manipulate these files that you will be programming in, manipulate the packages, which we will discuss what packages are later, and modules, projects, and all those things. So it's easier and efficient for the developer to write the code. Now, coming to the Java compiler is strong enough that it is built in different parts. So the Java compiler internally consists of the JDK consists of the Java Virtual Machine, also called as the JVM. The JVM is what is used to make Java and platform independent language, which led to the success of this language. The reason Java is used by many people is because the Java compiler internally has JVM. What JVM does is it converts your written code into a mediocre language, and that is architecture neutral, as mentioned here. So architecture neutral basically means that once that mediated language is ready, the JVM in any system can later use that and convert it to run. So the best part of part for having platform independent or an architecture neutral code is that today I can run it on a Mac. Tomorrow I can go ahead and run the same code on a Windows computer or a Linux computer. It doesn't matter. I can even run it on Android or any other platform that supports JVM. That's the one of the core benefit of having the Java compiler that makes it so good, and that's what made it popular in the early 90s and late 90s and early 2000s. So now coming to the environment setup, any questions till now, guys, or can we go ahead? Are you guys able to access the link that I sent?
Yeah, yeah, that's okay.
Okay, great. So yeah, coming to Java, environment setup is what we did on Thursday. I believe if you go down, you'll be able to see details about NetBeans and Eclipse. Now this is something that we've already done. If you scroll up at the beginning of the page, it will tell you to download Java and set it to the path. All of this is done directly internally. We've already done this on Thursday. Chocolatey does this for you, or even if not, if you installed it separately from the exe installer, then once you run that and once it gets installed into your system, that installer also does this for you automatically. You don't have to worry about any of that. So Java has been set up. An IDE for Java, which is NetBeans or Eclipse, has been set up. So this is our main requirement to start programming with Java. Are you guys with me till now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Akshay.
Guys, yeah, I'm not going to keep asking. If you have any questions, just interrupt me, or else I'm going to be moving on because this is just a little bit of theory information sprinkled in for you so that you guys can directly start coding, which will be starting in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So, coming to Java basic syntax, Java basically consists of multiple core entities which are very important for the language itself. So these are nothing but our classes. Our classes are nothing but the concepts that we've talked about. These concepts are like blueprints or templates, or like they basically represent an idea. Now these classes, when written in code, can later be converted to an object. So the objects are nothing but an actualization of those concepts. They are nothing but the realization of the classes created into a physical entity. And these objects have different types of like data present in them. The objects can have data members, or it can have data functions or methods. Now functions by methods basically means there are certain set of operations that the object can do. So like interact with something, do something to the data present inside itself, manipulate something that is present outside the object, stuff like that. Now these four concepts of classes, objects, the instance variables or the data members, and the methods or functions are very important to the general concept of object oriented programming. So whenever we look at a problem, we will be cutting them down into small entities, which are nothing but our classes. Now these entities, when created in code, will end up becoming our object. These objects are the ones that has the state and the behaviors that we will be using to manipulate things. The behavior, the manipulation part is done by the methods, and the state is stored or data is stored as part of the instance variables. Any questions now, guys? Okay, moving on. So this is coming to our first Java program. So here you can see is a very simple program written in Java, and it is very isolated, it's very tiny, and it is extremely self-explanatory. If you look at the first line, what it says is, it says public class my first Java program. So public basically means that it is available to be looked at from everywhere. Class is the concept that we spoke about, and this is the syntax for a class. By syntax, I mean the way a particular code is written is the syntax. So here you can see that public class and my first Java program is the name of this class. So this, as it is an o is has been opened here and closes here, basically represents the syntax of. Now this class in itself has these lines which are nothing but comments. These comments are for the developer themselves or for other people reading the code and has nothing to do with the compiler. As soon as the compiler sees this, it directly ignores everything in this range. So comments are nothing but things that even this part, comments are nothing but things that the developer writes so that the people reading the code can understand either themselves or for other developers in the project. Now coming to the later part of this code, you can see these three lines. This is what a method is. It says public static void main. So what this means is, again, public, it can be read by the outside world. Static basically means that this method belongs to the class. It does not belong to any object created of this class. It's a generic function, and these the meaning of static and everything will be covered in detail in the theory classes. By void main, you can see that main is the name of the function. This is just how you write in Java, and void is what it returns back. So every operation that happens through a function always takes certain input and gives certain outputs. In this case, it says void. By void, it means that there is no output given by this function. There's nothing that gets released from this function. The input that goes inside this function is this part that's mentioned inside the parenthesis. Now this is called a parameter. We will focus more on this parameter part later because that is when we will dwell into things like data types and stuff. But again, just ignore this part for now because it's not being used. Inside this function, as you can see, it gets opened here and closed here. These brackets are very important. These parentheses are the curly parentheses are very important for Java because that's how it defines the entire like structure of the entity. So as you can see, this opens here and closes here, but this one opens here and closes here. Are you guys able to see my cursor markings?
Yes, yes.
Someone can just unmute and speak because I can't see the chat right now. Okay,
We can
that's
say
all.
Akshay.
If someone writes anything on chat, please do let me know so I can quickly switch back and see. So let's just go ahead and copy this entire part. Now we'll just go and open our NetBeans for now. Okay, I'm going to create a new project for these Java sessions. You can just click Java with Ant, a simple Java application. Click on next. The name that I'm going to give the for this application is for this project is going to be Java intro. You can give it any name that you like. The location that I want for this to be stored in is going to be somewhere else. Just give me a minute. I'll go to where I want to save this. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Java intro sessions. And this is where I want it to be saved. And make sure that this part is ticked. Create main class. You want this project to have a main class. Now, a main class is a class that basically has your main function. This class is what begins your application, begins the execution of application. Whenever you run a Java code, the project will automatically, the Java compiler will automatically look for a main class, and the main function inside the main class will be run first. That is the reason it's called a main class. So make sure that this is being ticked. You can change the name of it here if you want, but you don't have to. You can just leave it as is and hit finish. It'll take a few seconds, and now you'll be able to see that this entire code has been generated for you. Are you guys with me till now?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's go ahead and check what NetBeans has done for us. On the left, you'll be able to see Java intro. Now this is the name of my project. So this internally has all the files related to my project. Now inside the project, you'll be able to see something called source packages. Now source packages is basically a directory by a folder, an easier way of calling directories that NetBeans creates for me to understand the different types of packages present inside this project. Now by default, okay, let me define what a package is. A package is nothing but a set of classes that are created. Because as I said, Java is built in such a way that everything boils down to object-oriented programming. Everything is either a class or an object. Where every time you create a class, you will end up creating an object for that class to manipulate the data. Now to handle all of these classes, we cut then divide them out into packages so that there is a certain set of structure and hierarchy that can be created and maintained for you as a developer to handle your program. Now, by default, there is one package inside this project called Java Intro, which is similar to the project name that I have given. And inside the Java Intro package, there is one file that it created automatically for me, which is the main class for this project. The name of this class is Java Intro, as mentioned on line 11. It says Java Intro. As you can see, all the part in gray is ignored by the compiler. Package Java intro in line number 5 defines that this particular file is present inside this package. So that when the compiler will read this line, it will understand, okay, this file belongs to this package. Below that, you'll be able to see more comments. It just says that the author is me. You can ignore all the comments part. And below that is our main content of our file. It's called public class Java intro. Public, again, I've explained. Class is the basically telling that this entire thing is a class. The name of the class is Java intro. Below which, again, there's more comments you can ignore. Below which there is a function present. The name of the function is main. It returns nothing, so it's void. It's a static function, which means it belongs to the class, and it's public, which means it can be read by outside by the compiler or any other classes. Now, in your class diagram, in next week's theory class, sir will explain more about what public is, what private is, and all those types of details. They are called access specifiers or visibility specifiers or modifiers. Different people call it with different names, but it all means the same thing. Access specifier means what access it has, and visibility specifier means how visible it is. It's the same thing, but different ways of saying the same thing. Again, coming to the main function, it takes this as the input. Let's ignore that for now. And below that in line 17, you can see that again, it's grayed out. It starts with 2 slashes, which means it's a comment. So anything that's written here will not be read by the compiler. Now, if we go back to the code from this tutorials point website, you'll be able to see that it's the same architecture that's been created for us automatically. There is a public class, there is a main function. However, the content inside this function is different. So I'm just going to copy this part system out print ln and semicolon. So I'm going to explain what this line means now. Coming back to here, I'm just going to press enter, go on to the next line, and I'm going to paste the line I just copied. Are you guys with me till now? Any question on Zoom? For today's session, I'm going to go very slow just to understand the basics. We only have the session till 2 p.m. So I believe we have like 30 minutes more. And then from tomorrow's session, from next Sunday, I'm going to start more important concepts like data types and how we deal with data types, classes and functions and conditioning and all those things.
Will the classes from next week also be 1 to 2 or just 1 hour only?
No, I believe no. The on-ground one will be longer. It will be from 1 to 3.
Can you
So
keep
from
it
next Sunday,
hybrid if possible?
I've already asked professors, so we already have a room booked, and as per university regulations, the other courses are electives and they do not have a different lab component. So that is the reason they are able to do a online lab or a hybrid lab, but this course has to be on ground as informed by the university. So
But
it will
this
be on
this
ground.
isn't mandatory, so I was asking if it is possible you can keep it hybrid or even online. I think most of
No,
the students here would agree on a online class.
no, I understand. You can ask professor with about this if you want, because already a few of you have emailed me and messaged me. I have asked professor, but sir has already mentioned that the Sunday session has to be on ground. The attendance for this session is not mandatory. It is only for beginners who need help with Java basics. But Thursday lab is on ground, and Sunday session will intro session will also be on ground. So
Okay.
if you guys want to discuss, you can surely take it up with professor. But as per university regulations, it's not in my hands. Even I had asked for a hybrid or something like this to do it online, but professor said that he's already spoken with the team and the department wants us to do it on ground itself. But you guys can sure on the in the next Friday class, make sure that you ask him about this, or you can just email him or message him about this if you can.
Okay.
If
Okay.
most of you guys are okay with the hybrid thing, I guess then professor will try to figure some solution out. But for now, the Sunday sessions are on ground in person only. It was hybrid, but I changed it on Canvas. I changed it everywhere so that you guys knew that this is where you had to come to. Only for this week, it's online because we did not get a class allotted. But from next Sunday onwards, there is also a physical classroom that's allotted to us.
Okay. We'll talk about it with the professor on Friday or Thursday, I guess.
Sure, sure. Okay.
I'm
So
sorry. Do we need to open the system and then follow the instruction with you?
you don't need to, but you can like do the same thing that I'm doing if you want to just follow my instructions and go step by step.
Okay.
You
Thank
don't
you.
need to do it this week, but I would suggest for next Sunday, like try like doing it parallelly so it's easier for you as well to understand what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. So next Sunday is 3 hours lecture?
2 hours.
Oh, 2 hours. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3.
Mhm.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay. So yes, coming to this line that I just printed, you can see it's written as system.out.println. So this is what makes Java extremely like developer friendly and easy readability. So what it basically means is from the system class, sorry, from the I believe system, yeah, from the system class, from the out instance variable, we are calling the println function. How do I know it's a function? It's because it starts with an open parenthesis and ends with a close parenthesis. Every statement in Java ends with a semicolon. What this tells the compiler is that one statement of code has been completed here. That's the main reason for using semicolon. Very similar to how we put a full stop in English when we finish a sentence. So what this line tells the compiler is that from the system class, from the out instance variable, use the print function and print all the things that's mentioned inside here. So this is the input that goes to the print function, very similar to this line 16, all the content that goes to the main function. So now if I go ahead, save this file, yeah, it's already saved. And if I go ahead and click this green button, if I run the project, you'll be able to see that hello world is the message that gets printed. Now if I go ahead and change the content here in line number 18, again, save this file and run it again, the content changes. As soon as I hit the play button, as I mentioned, the compiler looks into the project, looks at the main package, main class, it sees that Java intro is here, and the main function that is present inside this class is immediately executed. While executing, it can see line number 17 starts with these two slashes. So it's a comment. It's going to ignore this line. And the next line, line number 18, is what gets executed. Again, to repeat, from the system class, which is an inbuilt class for Java, from the out instance variable, which is again an inbuilt thing that system has, it is calling the print function. Now, print is again an inbuilt function that we have not written. We have not written anything till now. We are just starting the application and writing one line of code. So all this internalization is why Java is effective, because it does all these things for us readily. And a tool like NetBeans or Eclipse is useful because it allows us to manipulate our projects and packages like this in this format. As you can say, if I if I go inside the libraries, it will show me that JDK 20 is the default Java version that is being used for this project. If I open that, see, these are all the inbuilt Java classes and packages that are present, which is nothing that I have written. It is all inbuilt as part of the JDK, as part of the compiler. So in our future sessions, we will be using libraries and more inbuilt modules like this to figure out solutions for all the problems that we'll be facing. So these are things that allow us to define our own classes, define our own variables inside those classes, define our own methods, define the different types of data that are present, define things like what are the packages, what are the objects, what to call the objects, create the object, destroy the objects, and everything. And similar to this JDK, we will have another library that we will be importing for Lab 3, nothing to do now, to use things for graphical development, which will be Java Swing or Java FX. Those are external libraries which will be put here so that we can directly use graphical utilities. Any questions, guys? So these are the things that we covered. The class name, our class name is in this case Java intro. Our method name is main. Our file name was also java intro.java. Just a small thing, all Java program code ends with the extension .java. Just like how text files ends with .txt, and I believe if you create it on Mac, it's RTF. On for Java code, for the compiler to understand that this file is a Java file, we end it with the extension .java.
Hello, Akshat.
Mhm.
So all in all, if you have a knowledge about Java, so then in order to prepare a program, we need to use these Java dependencies, right?
Correct.
I mean, okay. So there will get access to all the basic code structures.
Correct. So this is all present inside the JDK that we installed separately last week.
Yeah.
So when now if just to show you quickly, just a glance, if I
Okay.
right click onto this project, if I go to properties, what NetBeans has done for me is when I go to libraries, you can see Java platform here. and it has by default selected Java 20 because that is the only Java library present inside my laptop. If you have multiple version in this drop down, you can select, but for now there is only one, so it has already defaulted to that. And this is also where you can click on module path or class path and you can add other projects and other dependencies. Just to give a quick view. But yes, the JDK is here and JDK will allow us to do everything that we want. It is the Java development kit. It has all the tools necessary for us to create a Java program.
Okay. So in future lab sessions, we'll be using those Java dependency and libraries in order to prepare our program.
Yes.
Okay, sorted. Thank you.
Now let's come to Java basic syntax. Okay, let's talk about identifiers. Identifiers are the things that we discussed till now. All the special keywords that we read right now are called identifiers. For example, in this file, public is an identifier which says that it's a public class. Class itself is an identifier. The name Java intro is an identifier. Again, static is identifier, void is represent. It's all special keywords present inside Java are identifiers. Names used for classes, variables, and methods are called identifiers. So these are the things that we will be using later on to refer to them. As I told you, this class is called Java intro. So tomorrow I can refer to this class by saying Java intro. That is how I know it is identifying to this particular file, to this particular code. That's how I know this is an identifier. Same way, this method or this function, method and function are interchangeable words. This method is called main. So the identifier for this method is called main. The name is main. In line number 18, we are using the println method. So println is our identifier. Out is our identifier. System class. So system keyword is an identifier. So these are all identifiers that we will be using to write code. We also spoke about modifiers, which is public and private. You will be learning more about this in next week's theory class. And we will now talk about variables. A variable basically means that it instance data that is present inside a class. So variable is basically think of like an imaginary box that can hold some data. So now this box can have multiple things. It can have the data that it holds. It can have a name. The box itself can have a name, and the box can define the type of data that it can hold. Now the type of data, I mean what are the different types of data possible that can be used and written in Java. Most of the problems that we try to solve are very mathematical in nature. So most of the data types are defined using mathematical expressions. So to cover and understand variables, we will have to know the different type of data that we will be storing. So to come to that, let me just quickly show you. Okay, I believe we can go to data types. Yeah, basic data types. We'll go to the basic data type screen. Now, data types are of different ones. Primitive data types are the inbuilt mathematical data types that are present, which can be used. The reference and object data types we will discuss more in future sessions. Now, primitive data type basically, again, as I told you, are used for these imaginary boxes called variables that can hold the data. For example, the type of data that are supported by Java are byte. A byte basically means do you guys know what a bit is? A bit in mathematical or a computation term basically is a binary bit. It means either a 1 or a 0, a true or a false. So a byte is nothing but an 8-bit clubbed together. Similarly, short is nothing but 16-bit. It's a double of what a bit represents. Now these are very like binary and boolean are values that we will not be using on day-to-day basis, but it is very important to know that these exist. So tomorrow if we need to convert data into one form to other, we can use these logics and logical operations to convert them. Now coming to the most useful ones, we have these lists. Now the first one that we have is int. An int is nothing but it represents an integer. As we know in mathematics, an integer is nothing but a number which can be positive or negative or zero. Now integers are represented using the int keyword in Java. Similarly, for floating values, we have long. For floating values, we have float or double. Long is nothing but integers, but which are longer in nature. So for the int keyword, it only like includes this range from minimum to maximum. If we have numbers larger than this, we prefer using the long keyword. Similarly, float is used for floating and decimal point numbers. For example, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. And double is the same as float, but it's for double the size and precision. So if I have 32 bits after the decimal point, 32 bit is used. For 64 bit, it's much longer, it's much more precise. If I have a very minute and very long number after the decimal point, I will be using double. As I mentioned, Boolean is again true or false. It is not used on a day-to-day basis, but it represents either a 0 or a 1, a true or a false. Now, why are we doing these things? Why are we having these imaginary boxes? We will be covering later. But to understand the types of data Java supports is very important so that we can manipulate the data. Similarly, for characters, we have the char keyword. Now let's talk about how we store data in a particular class or a variable. So to the syntax or the way to write a particular variable is the data type followed by the variable name. And as I told you, it all ends with a semicolon. I'm just going to comment it out because the compiler is telling me there's an error with that line. So an example of that would be, let's say I have a variable called test, but it is of type integer. Now this is how you create a variable inside a class. Int test basically tells the compiler that there is a variable called test and it is present inside this Java intro class, and the data type that it can store is of type int, which is an integer. So test is an imaginary box which can contain number. Now to assign any particular number to this imaginary box, we will use the equal to sign and we will give it the number that we want it to store. Now, if you see, I have created a variable called test, which is of type integer. Equals basically means that we are assigning it and we are giving it the value. It is not mandatory to give this a value. So for example, if I just write int test1,
Shouldn't we write the integer in the main class?
yeah, we can do it there as well. I'm just writing it inside the class. I will be moving it there in some time when I talk about scoping. Just give me a minute. So what this means is there is an integer. This is called declaration. Line number 17 is called declaration. This basically means that you have declared there is a variable. It's called test1. It is of type integer. That's it. You don't know what you're going to do with it later, what it contains, nothing. You don't know anything. This is called initialization. Line number 19 is called initialization. What it means is there is a variable called test. It is of type integer and it is initialized to a value 3435 whatever. Now to understand where this belongs, you have to see where it's been written. You can see that this particular line 19 is outside the main class. So now the main class does not contain this this test variable. It is present outside. Where it actually exists is inside this the class Java intro. Now, if I want to move this, I can cut it and move it inside this main function. So now the test variable that I have created and initialized, it is only present inside my main class. And I can remove this entire thing that I have typed, which is just like a sentence, and I can directly tell the system to print my test variable. Now, once I save the file and I hit play, you can see that this number is printed here. So this is how you create a variable, either declare it or initialize it. And this is how you use a variable. You refer to it by its name, which is the identifier. So test is my identifier. So every class, every object, every variable has identifiers, which are the names, which we will be using to manipulate it. Now the variables can have different types of data, like integers. Let's say we take a floating point now. Let's say we have a floating point variable with the name variable2, and it has the value 1.23. Semicolon again to make sure that that the thing ends. And I believe it's giving me an error because it can loosely convert from, okay, I believe NetBeans by default wants this number to be a double, but since we know that it's not that long, I'm just going to write F and let NetBeans know that it's a float. Now, instead of printing this test variable, I can pass this as the input for the print function. What's the name? Variable2. Once I save, if I hit play, you can see that 1.23 is run. So this is the maximum we're going to be covering today. Most of it we're going to be covering later because we're almost short on time, and also I don't want to overcrowd with too much information for day one. We learned what Java is. We learned what compilers are. We understand how the compiler converts our code. We now know what NetBeans is, what the JDK is. We know what classes are, what objects are, what methods and functions are, or what data is. We know the different types of data type present in Java and how we can declare them or assign them. So this is called declaration. Int test2 equal to 10. This is called initialization. Similarly, we now know the purpose of the main class. We know the purpose of the main function. A program can only have one main function. If I create another main function, NetBeans will not let me do that. Even if it mistakenly lets me do that, I will get an error message in my program saying that it doesn't know which function to run. Two functions cannot have the same name, which is very obvious. And that is also another concept that you will be covering in the theory class.
Can we print test2 inside the main class? Will it show or will it show error?
Let's try. Test2, okay, see, already NetBeans is giving me an error. It's giving me a warning actually. Let's try to run it. Nope, cannot. Because main function, this is called scoping. So this is the scoping error. Main function by default does not know what exists, anything outside it. It is in its own world. It does not know what is there in the outside world.
Shit, I have a doubt.
Mhm.
So, like, according to scoping 2, the variables are under like the tag of public, right? So it should be accessible everywhere, right?
No, I believe by default it's not public. You will learn that in tomorrow's session. I mean, sorry, tomorrow in the theory session. By default in Java, and we will also cover it in our lab on Thursday. But by default, members are not public.
Okay.
So to refer to that, we use a special word called this, which refers to the class itself. I'm not sure if it would allow me to, because it's a non-static variable error I'm getting. from a static context. Let's see if this runs. No, I believe it's still not available. So for me to allow the main function to use this variable, I need to let the compiler know that this variable is public. Now when I save it and hit run, what does it say? Non-static variables cannot be referred to a static context. Oh, yes, correct. Now this will also be a problem. Since we know that main is a static function,
ये लेट सो या रात में
sorry,
3 बजे उस पर
sorry, someone speaking, if you can just mute yourself. I mean, if you could just mute yourself, it will be, I can just go ahead and mute if I can. Okay, so by default, since the main function is static, what actually happens is when the program is created, this class gets executed. So an object for the Java intro class is created. However, the main function that is present inside the object is static. So the object does not have the main function, only the class has the main function. And that's the reason main function can only exist one time and it gets executed once. The problem with this error is saying is that test2 it belongs to the class. It belongs to the instance. So if I need to access it, it has to be from the object itself. I cannot access it from a static function. Since main is static, it cannot access an instance variable directly.
If you create another class, then we have to create another static void main.
No, the problem is with the static. Since it is static, that is the reason I'm not able to access it. If I create a different function, for example, if I call it public void print variable 2, okay, and this is going to not take anything, and this will internally have this line variable 2 line, and if I try printing this variable, it will be fine. I don't even need this keyword or anything. I just need to know variable 2. Okay, I'm just gonna fix the formatting real quick. However, this code is written, but it's not gonna get executed because I have only created this function called print variable 2. To call this function, to make sure that it gets executed, I will call it from the main function. I will say print, what's the name? Print variable 2. And refer to it with this keyword. What's the error now? Non-static variable. Again, now this function also belongs to the object. It cannot be accessed by the main class directly. But you are right. If I create a different class, if I create an object for that class and then refer to it, I will be able to easily access it. That is the whole benefit. It might seem like a problem right now, but that is the whole benefit of this object-oriented programming concept. Everything has to be a class, everything has to be an object, and every object will have data members and methods. It will have a state and behavior. Methods are the behavior, the different things it can do, and the state is the data that it contains. Now, the data that it contains can be multiple data, many types of data of different data types like integers, floats, doubles, longs, characters, all of that. The functions, we have to make sure that every function has an input and an output. The output is the return type. The input is what we mentioned inside the parentheses. For now, it is empty. It is not mandatory, but the output always is mandatory to let the compiler know what is this function giving back to me. That's all for now that we will be covering. Literals is what we covered right now. And we will dwell more into Java basics in the next session. this is going to be way slower than what we do in our lab sessions. But a lot of the Java basic concepts is also going to get covered on next Thursday lab. That is the reason I'm not covering too much today. But from next week onwards, I will be going through a lot of important concepts on ground. So if you guys need help with Java basics, I would recommend please come on ground. It is really important to get your basics sorted for week 3, so you can directly work with graphical concepts like Java Swing. Next Thursday for lab 2, we are going to cover Java basics a little bit, and we are going to mainly cover data structures. I will explain what a data structure is and why we use them and the benefits of them. And all of it is to understand that it is very important to know what data types are. So if you have a good understanding of data types, you are reading, please, I will send this link also online. Please make sure you do some kind of practice yourself to understand core concepts of data types and variables. So you know that this imaginary box is called a variable, the type of data it holds is called the data type, and how to declare them, how to assign them. That's it. That's all the knowledge you need for next week's lab.
For this submission of the assignment of the Thursday lab, do we just have to paste the screenshot of the NetBeans IDE and the
Yes.
link to our GitHub account?
Yes.
Is there a particular thing that we have to screenshot, or just that NetBeans is
Just your
installed?
setup isn't completed, because it's just a proof saying that everything is working fine for you, so that tomorrow, like last semester, there were many issues with many students who did not have a setup ready. So this is a very simple thing for students to do, just as a proof of setup.
Okay.
Because I can't have students come up to me on week 4 and tell me I don't have NetBeans and it's installed and it's not working. I don't know how to do the lab. Now, again, that is a very late time to tell me that, because we have a lot of things to cover. And the reason our course is structured in such a way is because every topic that we cover every week is an elective in itself for this program. So in future, we will be covering Python with data visualization, which is an intro to the data science course that we have. We will be covering JDBC connectivity, which is an intro to the database class that we have course for the next semester that you can take. Some people might have been doing it, might be doing it right now parallelly with this course. We also have stuff with Docker and everything, and web development, introduction to web development, and that is also some elective that you can choose later down the line for your future courses. This is like a broad understanding of this entire course, this entire program, and the domain. Any other questions, guys, before I wrap up?
Thank you.
There is going to be no deliverables for this Sunday sessions, but I hope you guys do your own reading, learn your stuff. I will be uploading this link in Canvas very soon with the recording. My recording takes about 20 or 30 minutes to get ready. Once that is ready, I will create it on Canvas, create one page on Canvas and put it there so that you guys can access the recording. I have only covered the first 5 or 6 things. We have done basic setup, we have done environment, we have spoken about compilers, we have done the basic syntax, we know the data types, and we know why object-oriented programming is awesome. That is one opinion. Some people might not agree, but it's a very good tool for us to have to solve a lot of problems. Any other questions, guys? I'm going to just stop the recording now, if I can.
While